order. Pledge of Allegiance, Councilmember Richardson.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
No personal appearances, unfinished business.
Do a roll call, please.
Oh, yeah, that might help.
Mayor Larkey.
Here.
Councilmember White.
Here.
Councilmember Powell.
Here.
Councilmember Pryan.
Here.
Councilmember Kraft. Councilmember Clark. Councilmember Goff.
Here.
Councilmember Lawson. Here. Councilmember Richardson.
Here.
We have a quorum. No personal appearances, unfinished business. A, motion approving the final reading of Bill 2023-46.
An ordinance levying and fixing the rate of tax for municipal purposes for the Park Fund and for the Debt Service Fund of fiscal year 2024.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Pryan.
Aye.
Kraft.
Aye.
Powell.
Yes.
White.
Aye.
Goff.
Aye.
Lawson.
Aye.
Mayor Larkey.
Yes.
Richardson.
Aye.
Motion carries. B, motion approving the final reading of Bill 2023-47.
An ordinance amending sections 18-2, 40-1, 40-4, and Appendix A of the Unified Development Code related to the Old Town Belton Overlay District and Schedule of Fees.
Present.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Lawson.
Aye.
Goff.
Aye.
Powell.
Yes.
Richardson.
Aye.
Pryan.
Aye.
Kraft.
Aye.
White.
Aye.
Mayor Larkey.
Yes. Motion carries. C, motion approving the final reading of Bill 2023-48.
An ordinance removing Appendix A, Part 2 of the Code of Ordinances.
Present.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Richardson.
Aye.
Powell.
Yes.
Pryan.
Aye.
Kraft.
Aye.
Goff.
Aye.
White.
Aye.
Lawson.
Aye.
Mayor Larkey.
Yes. Motion approved. New business. A, a motion approving the first reading of Bill 2023-50.
An ordinance approving an amended preliminary development plan for Autumn Woods, generally located at the northwest corner of West Markey Road and Belton Avenue.
Present.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Go ahead.
Yep, before this evening is an amended preliminary development plan for Autumn Woods, which is a 101-unit multifamily development generally located at the northwest corner of West Markey Road and Belton Avenue. The current development plans were approved in 2015 and are still in effect. In April, a motion to approve an amended plan failed at the City Council due to concerns about parking. The applicant has worked with staff on various parking solutions and believes that the most effective solution is providing two-car driveways for each unit with small landscape islands in between. This solution would double the amount of driveway parking in the second phase, though will limit landscaping and green space in the front yard areas of the buildings. This option also significantly reduces on-street parking options, which will allow for improved traffic flow through the site. The amended preliminary development plan and a final development plan were presented to the Planning Commission on August 1st, and the Commission recommended unanimous approval of both plans. No one spoke in favor or in opposition at the public hearing. During the discussion, the Commission did question if the driveway widths would be modified in the first phase to match the proposed second phase. If the wider driveway plan is approved in the second phase, the developer is willing to widen the driveways in the first phase where there aren't obstructions to match what is proposed in the second phase. Based on the developer's estimate, there may be 2 to 3 driveways that could not be widened due to existing obstructions in the first phase, but all other driveways could be widened. Staff has included in the council action report a potential added condition should the council believe that the driveway widening is acceptable for the first phase. Along with the preliminary development plan, there's also an amended development and maintenance agreement that is being brought back forward this evening. This is the same agreement that was brought forward in April and was tabled until an amended preliminary development plan could be brought back for consideration. Staff does recommend approval of the amended preliminary development plan with 6 conditions, plus the 7th condition should the council decide to make that condition for the wider driveways in the first phase. And we also recommend approval of the amended development and maintenance agreement.
Any discussion? Go ahead.
So I think you answered my question that under legal it says if the revised amended preliminary development plan is denied, the developer still is allowed to proceed with the previously approved plans. But the previously approved plans are the ones in 2015, correct?
Correct, and it's
And what was happening there? I couldn't really, side by side, I tried to read what was the difference between that and what they've amended, and
So the 2015 plan is what's currently in effect, which is essentially what they've already built out there, which are single car driveways with the single car garage.
okay, so that would include, the 2015 it also included phase 2 also.
It included phase 2 as well, but since that time under this plan, they not only widened the driveways, but they've increased the trail width. They've added some additional larger playground. They've added a picnic shelter. So there's a number of other improvements to the site, and landscaping and amenities that they've added in addition to this parking standard. So overall, staff thinks it's a much better plan than what could currently be built under the 2015 plans.
And just for my own information, because I can't really make it out from the UDC, I tried, but how long does a final development plan, once it's approved, stay in effect? Forever, or?
It stays in effect. It's essentially locked in once construction has started. So the fact that they've started construction, it's locked in place.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. B, motion approving the first reading of Bill 2023-21. This number's off from the upper, numbers up above because this has already been presented to us and it was put on hold because we turned the other one down. So that's why the numbers are off.
An ordinance approving an amended development and maintenance agreement between the City of Belton and Autumn Woods Development LP for public and private infrastructure and site improvements in Autumn Woods.
Present.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Go ahead.
Has this thing called an amended preliminary and final development plan, has it been changed since April meeting?
The only changes to it are what were presented with this. So a lot of the changes that are in the development and maintenance agreement have not changed. So there were items in there about the amenities and the timing of installations of those. Also, the option for the developer to come back and retrofit the existing units for individual water and sewer meters. That is still in there, and that would come forward with future public improvements as well as revised preliminary and final plat to townhouse those units.
Okay. And I had these questions back in April, but never got a chance to ask them because we didn't get that far. But anyway, what it says they need to use the best management practices for stormwater sewer facilities. Is that an enumeration of 5 or 6 things, or is that a whole document they have to follow, or maybe Craig could answer that.
So that's a whole document that actually starts at Mid-America Regional Council that everyone has agreed to what the best management practices for handling stormwater and water quality is.
Okay.
And so everybody's required to have some sort of BMP, some way to clean the water before it goes from the parking lot and streets out into the streams.
Some way to clean the water before it goes to the park, like if.
So there's multiple ways you could do it. There's ways of building swales, there's ways of building detention ponds, there's ways you can use inlets with sand in it. There's not just one solution. There's multiple solutions that are listed, and every developer can pick the solution that fits their development.
Okay, so if some guy's changing his oil in the parking lot and he has an oil spill, do they have to have a plan for that?
No, we're not. We're talking about the oil drips that come off of cars as they're just driving up and down the road.
Okay, not for spills.
This is not mitigating spills.
Okay. And then on page 42, it says, the developer, its successors, and assigns shall inspect the stormwater management system and the BMP facility and submit an inspection report to the city's public works director annually. And so my question is, who writes this report once the developer is left?
It's normally left up to the homeowners association to inspect and submit a report to us.
Okay. Well, when I lived in Houston, everybody had a homeowners association, but when I came here, everybody says the first thing a homeowners association does is dissolve themselves. So what happens if they dissolve themselves? I mean,
Then it would fall on each individual property owner as the developer's successor to submit that required report.
wow. So you get, what, 101 reports?
Well, it could be, but since they're multifamily rentals, it'll most likely be either a new development entity will buy the entire area, or if there are individual ones, this development agreement is recorded with the county once it is executed, so it would show up on a title report should somebody purchase one of these townhouses individually.
Okay, okay. And then there's this big, long paragraph where it says that if they don't follow through with that or with doing this, shoveling the snow or whatever, the developer will have 10 days from the date of the letter, which the city sends to them because they were in default, an adequate plan to make repairs. If adequate repairs are not made by the developer consents and agrees the city may enter upon the property and take whatever steps necessary to correct deficiencies. There shall be a $500 penalty for each day the developer does not make adequate repairs. Does that start when we figure out that they did something wrong, or does it start when we send the letter, or does it start after they've had the letter for 10 days, or?
It would start after the 10-day cure period.
Okay, okay. And then finally, who's responsible for water delivery and if a pipe breaks and that kind of thing? I mean, it seems to me that this is unusual compared to some of the other areas that we
So
approve.
it would fall under kind of the city's still standard practice. If the city council does end up accepting the public infrastructure after inspection by Public Works, then the mains would become city property, and then the service lines, aka meter to house. Do you guys do main to house or meter to house? I forget.
I thought these were private streets. I thought this was.
This particular one has a master meter. The
Yeah.
new phase will have meters for every unit.
Okay,
So there will be a main, and then there will be meters off of that, and the main will be the city's responsibility, and then the service lines will be the responsibility of the homeowners or customers.
including the customers' water meters.
Yes.
Okay,
Do we go through meter or stop at meter? Every city has a different definition of service line.
No, we maintain the meters.
Okay, so it's past meter to house is the responsibility of the customer.
okay. So they're somewhere here, if it's on my property, or if it's past that main meter, then it's their responsibility for fixing the line if it's broke or whatever. Okay. And then finally, I said finally once before, but I gotta say it again. It says documents providing for the establishment of a property owners association must be submitted to the community development director before approval of a final plat. That's in UDC 36-38B. So do we have that documentation of the establishment of a property owners association?
We do not yet because we have not received a final plat.
Okay, so before the final plan and then the final plat will come later and.
Yeah, they will have to come back forward with a preliminary and a final plat for the second phase to townhouse that. And then there may be a separate final plat that comes at a later date once they've retrofitted, if they decide to retrofit the first phase to townhouse those. So at that time, we will have the property maintenance or property owners,
Association.
homeowners association documents with that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. C, motion approving the first reading of Bill 2023-51.
An ordinance approving a final plat for Cross and Mac, a two-lot subdivision located at 510 and 516 3rd Street in the city of Belton, Missouri.
Present. Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yep, this is a final plat for Cross and Mac, which is a two-lot subdivision at the southwest corner of 3rd and Herschel. The final plat is a replat of 5 original Old Town lots that are zoned R2 two-family residential. The developer would like to replat the lots for 2 duplexes that would be oriented towards Herschel. There are a few public works items that do need to be completed before building permits can be issued, which are included as conditions with the final plat. That includes a water line extension along Herschel and then sidewalk improvements. This plan does meet all subdivision regulations. However, the applicant is requesting an adjustment to the corner side building setback line along 3rd Street, which would reduce that setback from 25 feet to 15 feet. That setback is consistent with other residential buildings built along 3rd Street, which have smaller setbacks than what is currently allowed in the R2 zoning district. The Planning Commission recommended unanimous approval of the final plat on August 1st. Staff recommends approval with 6 conditions that are included in the ordinance. And if there are no unanswered questions or concerns with the request this evening, staff does request a double read to allow the applicant to proceed with signatures and recording the plat at Cass County.
Anybody? Rob, you gonna have anything?
No.
Oh,
I'm
you were,
sorry.
looked like you were working on something.
I was catching up on the notes you gave me last.
All right. Hearing nothing else, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Motion for a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for a second reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion approving the second reading of Bill 2023-51.
An ordinance approving a final plat for Cross and Mack, a 2-lot subdivision located at 510 and 516 3rd Street in the city of Belton, Missouri.
Present.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Larkey,
Yes.
Councilmember Goff,
Yes.
Pryan,
Aye.
White,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Lawson,
Aye.
Powell,
Yes.
Kraft.
Aye.
Motion carries. D, motion approving the first reading of Bill 2023-52.
An ordinance approving a rezoning from A agriculture to R1 single family for a 1.23 more or less acre parcel located at 1208 South Cedar Street.
Present.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, this is a request to rezone 1.23 acres from A agriculture to R1 single family for property address at 1208 South Cedar Street. This is included as Lot 1 on the proposed final plat for Bay's Place, which is the next item on the agenda. The agriculture zoning is reserved for lots that are greater than 5 acres, and with the replat of this, or the new plat of this property, that Lot 1 would be below that 5 acres, which is the purpose of the rezoning. Lot 2 will remain as agriculture zoning because of its size. The final plat does comply with all subdivision regulations and standards, with the exception of Lot 2, which exceeds the maximum lot depth. However, the lot depth is in keeping with the surrounding properties. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on the rezoning on August 1st, at which no one spoke in favor or in opposition to the request. The Commission did recommend unanimous approval of the rezoning as well as the final plat, and they also approved a preliminary plat. Staff recommends approval of both the rezoning and the final plat with 2 conditions. And like with the last final plat, if there are no unanswered questions or concerns, staff does request a double read to allow the applicant to rezone the property and proceed with signatures and recording of the plat at Cass County.
Any other discussion?
I have
Go ahead.
one question. And maybe you've answered this before, so I'm sorry for repeating, but I went on the county's GIS, and it shows both those properties, 1208 and 1210, being residential. So is there a difference between the way the county looks at stuff and the city looks at stuff? Or are they wrong, or are we wrong, or why are we doing this?
Yeah, we have separate zoning from what they assess a property as. Assessment is based on the land use, not so much the zoning of the property.
Okay.
So we have a lot of properties that may be zoned commercial in the city, but maybe assessed as agriculture because they don't have any development on them.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
The city manager.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, just to clarify for anybody who might be watching and wondering the same thing, the county is under no obligation to follow our zoning when it comes to how they assess properties. So they're two different. They're set separately.
So when these things get filed, like a survey or a plat or whatever, and we always say here at the end it'll go down and be filed in the county. They copy it and they put it in a file, but they don't necessarily change their stuff to be consistent with what we came up with.
The reason that they do that well, the zoning is set by the cities to essentially set what can be built there, how they can utilize that property, and those are city standards, okay? The county is just assessing what they're using it for, so that way they know how to essentially,
Tax
set the tax levy.
Yeah,
or
because there's
set the
different
tax rate.
assessments for
Right,
agriculture
right.
and
So
residential
they
and
have,
commercial.
they have zero concern with how we develop and what our development standards are as a community. They're just trying to see what they want to tax it at.
Great, thanks a lot.
Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Motion for a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for a second reading. Why they asked for this is because this is our last meeting until the end of September, and we're not meeting because of MML, so they wanted to get this stuff going, so that's why we're doing second readings, if everybody's okay with it, so. No, nothing else? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion approving the second reading of Bill 2023-52.
An ordinance approving a rezoning from A agriculture to R1 single family for a 1.23 more or less acre parcel located at 1208 South Cedar Street.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Richardson?
Aye.
Powell?
Yes?
Pryan?
Aye.
Kraft?
Aye.
Goff?
Aye.
White?
Aye.
Lawson?
Aye.
Mayor Larkey.
Yes. Motion carries. E, motion approving the first reading of Bill 2023-53.
An ordinance approving a final plat for Bays Place, a two-lot subdivision located at 1208 and 1210 South Cedar Street in the city of Belton, Missouri.
Present.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Anything else you want to add?
Been nothing else to add.
Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Motion for a second.
Second.
Motion and a second for a second meeting of Bill 2023-53. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion to approve the second reading of Bill 2023-53.
An ordinance approving a final plat for Bays Place, a two-lot subdivision located at 1208 and 1210 South Cedar Street in the city of Belton, Missouri.
Present.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Councilmember Lawson?
Aye.
Goff?
Aye.
Powell?
Yes?
Richardson?
Aye.
Pryan?
Aye.
Kraft?
Aye.
White?
Aye.
Mayor Larkey.
Yes. Motion carries. F, motion approving resolution 2023-88.
A resolution formally accepting the Southview Commerce Center fourth plat new public infrastructure of 782 feet of sanitary sewer, 2,252 feet of 8-inch water line, 1,652 feet of 12-inch water line, and a 2-year maintenance bond in the amount of $778,189.76.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
This is our standard acceptance of public infrastructure when a developer builds a new development. This is going to be, I believe, the last of the Southview Commerce Center infrastructure that will be out there that needs to be accepted. This is just basically the water line and sanitary sewer. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, at one point, I asked somebody, either you or City Manager Warren or somebody, would these lines along the Commerce Center have anything to do with White Avenue? And you said, I thought the answer was no, but yet it shows on the east portion of this, of what we're taking over, it ties right into White Avenue, or White Drive. So do you, it is, I guess it is. I mean, this is accurate, right? Or did I hear
Correct.
wrong
So
before?
they connected at the end of the street
Uh-huh.
and brought it over to the Commerce Center, and they also connected from the south.
So we'll have an effect on the possible water pressure for people on, for instance, White Drive and 157th, right? Because there's...
Should have absolutely no effect on it.
Okay, and that's because there's bigger lines now, or?
Correct. So we built bigger lines, and it's also connected in a loop. So the whole area is connected together. So water doesn't travel one way through a water line like a lot of people think.
Uh-huh.
It travels both ways. So if pressure is drawn one way or another, the pressure from the area equalizes. So one user shouldn't be able to drop the pressure. I mean, we do water pressure studies and everything to protect against that.
Okay,
Actually should probably help the water pressure with the new lines and
yeah. Well, okay.
so. Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Motion carries. G, motion approving resolution 2023-89.
A resolution approving the engagement of BT and Co. and to audit the city financial records for fiscal year 2023.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. You're up.
Good evening, Council and Mr. Mayor. Yes, this resolution essentially is an audit engagement letter for FY23's audit with a firm called BT and Company. In your council action report, it explains kind of the situation. It's taken, many months to try and get FY22's audit completed, and we're still waiting. They're supposed to be coming back again in a couple weeks to wrap that up for us in September. And so, because of the slow responsiveness and to be fair to the company, the firm we're using now, they've had some staffing issues and things that have come up on their side, but we need more responsiveness and more timeliness on FY23's audit. So we want to get it lined up to come right after 22 is done, and so we're bringing in a different firm with a lot larger staff, who's very well respected in the field, and we're asking that you guys essentially allow us to do that since we're already behind because of the FY22 audit taking so long. And so I'll stand for any questions if you have any.
Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda, one motion non-debatable to approve the recommendations noted. Any member of the council may ask for an item to be taken from the consent agenda for discussion and separate action.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Communication from City Council. Chris?
All I know of is we got Fall Fest coming up in a couple weeks, so everybody make it up to it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Some updates from parks. The farmers market this coming Thursday will be canceled due to the excessive heat. The Memorial Park playground is back open with improved play equipment and play surface. And the new basketball court is poured out at Country View Park in West Belton. And once that is set, they'll put in the goals. The barbecue is September 9th at Memorial Park. So cars and barbecue, what else could you want? And then an interesting data point shared last night at the park board meeting. The junior disc golf course recently installed out at Country View Park in West Belton has already had 226 games logged in a popular disc golf app. So that's just games that the diehards have logged their scores in the app. There's a lot of feedback from folks that they've seen families and kids out there, trying a new sport. So that's been a great improvement to the park.
Cool.
Very nice. I don't have anything, Mayor.
Nope.
Okay, well, with our wonderful heat advisory, our local nonprofits are working on collecting funds to help citizens that a lot of our seniors and a lot of our disabled families do not have air, and they are helping them to either get air conditioners, fans, whatever is needed, or even if they need to stay a night out. So they are taking donations, and we did also just get 10 AC units that may have already been all spoken for, but that's going to 10 Belton families that needed that help. So.
Good.
I just wanted to congratulate the Parks Department about the outdoor pool. I walk by there with my dog pretty much every day, and I didn't see any police cars or any commotion or anything in contrast to what was going on last summer. So I think everything went well, I hope, at the outdoor pool.
That was shared last night, that the first weekend or two there was a little bit of expectation setting in terms of behavior, but it's been pretty smooth sailing this summer, so
Yeah.
I'm sure they'll appreciate that.
That's good.
Good.
And last week, the TDD, the Transportation District Development District group met and discussed bid letting for Mullen Road expansion as soon as utilities are moved. I sound like a broken record because I always say they're going to be moved, but and Verizon has another 6 weeks to move, so I guess a month from now I'll have the same thing but they hopefully that, Greg, Rocos is saying they're hoping that once they do let the bids, that they'll get back, some bids by October 18th, so the project's still on. That's all I got.
Rob and I will be hosting a Ward 4 meeting on Monday, September 18th at 6 o'clock at the Memorial Station. So, if you're all free to come.
I don't have anything. The only thing I got would be the reminder we're not meeting on the 12th of September, so that's all I have. Go ahead, City Manager.
And the only thing I have is that, and it actually coincides very nicely with the ward meeting that's being held in Ward 4, is it is FY25 budget season about to kick off, and so we need to start planning our ward meetings for the budget process, and so it would be very easy for us to just dovetail with the ward meeting you guys already have set for that ward. So we'll need to set up 3 other dates and times for ward meetings and
Didn't
even
we
locations.
just do that?
We did a year ago.
I know.
Yep. So that's all I've got.
All right. Items for review and discussion. A, Aaron's Family Fun Center.
Yep, staff is currently reviewing a special use permit application for an update to the Aaron's Family Fun Center pole sign, which is at the corner of 58 Highway and Aaron Lane. The applicant is requesting to replace the changeable copy sign to an electronic message center sign. The overall sign area will not change. As part of the modification, the additional cladding will be added around the pole itself to give it more of a monument sign appearance. There's a public hearing that is scheduled for the Planning Commission on Tuesday, September 5th, and then that will come before council on September 26th.
Any questions? Item B, speed limit change.
So, if you remember back a few months, we had a resident come to the council meeting and talk about the speed on Cambridge. Since then, I got a lot of different comments from different people, especially noting that the speed limit on Cambridge is 35 miles per hour to the east of Cedar, but 25 miles an hour to the west of Cedar. It's an arterial road in the city, and so most arterial roads are listed at 35 miles per hour. So we conducted a speed study and went out and checked what the speeds were because of what he had said and what other people have commented to me and had called me about. So from that speed study, we had over 10,000 cars that actually we got their speed over 6 days. So there is, a considerable amount of traffic going down the road. And the 85th percentile, and if you remember in our last little discussion on speed, is the speed that we like to set the speed limits at, is known to be the safest speed that people travel. The 85th percentile speed came out at 35 miles per hour on Cambridge. And so we are going to propose, first we're going to get your feedback, but we would like to propose changing the speed limit from 25 miles an hour to 35 miles an hour from Cedar to the west city limit, which is, I guess, Cleveland. Now, the reduced speed limit by the schools would still be there, so still be 25 miles an hour in front of the schools when school's going on, so that would not change. It's just the rest of the road would be consistent all the way across from Peculiar Drive all the way to our west city limits. So that is going to be what we're going to propose. I'm happy to get any input that you might have.
Any questions? Go ahead, Councilman Kraft.
I have 2 questions. One, was the study done in both places where it's already 35 and 25, or just where it's just 25?
We just did it where it's 25.
Okay, I was just curious if the 35 was really actually 35. I have a suspicion on that. And then my second question is, we have a lot of walkers that come home from Cambridge, and there is a large stretch there on Cedar that doesn't have sidewalks. Are there any plans or anything of that sort for those walkers that are walking home next to 35-mile-per-hour cars now?
Well, we connected the sidewalks that were out there. So, so when we put the new culvert in, we put the sidewalk in, which made the connection from Timber Creek all the way up to the school. And we actually went and fixed a lot of the broken sidewalk that were in between the two, so there would be a continuous sidewalk out there.
I was meaning the other direction, going past Heartland and
Oh,
to
you're
the stop
headed to
sign
the
there.
east.
Yes.
Yeah, currently there's not a sidewalk there.
Could we,
Cost $4 million.
Oh,
That's what Greg said.
We extend, where does the school zone stop going east?
I believe it goes from, I have to go out and check it to be exact, but I think it's going from Cedar all the way over the top of the hill past the elementary school.
Is that,
Over.
do we set that or does the school district set that?
We do that.
I would think we would probably want to look at least making sure it goes to Y.
Correct.
As I said a few weeks ago when this came up, to me, there's a big difference, and I would defer to Ward 3 council people who probably know it better, but there's a big difference between east, where there's really hardly any housing on Cambridge. I mean, there's big lots, but the houses are way back, or there's a trailer park that's way back, or there's a rest home that's way back. And on the west, where there's houses in a normal neighborhood right up against the street on both sides of the road, and children playing in those yards. And I think that was part of the reason the resident came, because he has kids, and there's kids on that hill, and they top the hill from coming east from Cleveland, and they just go down that hill 35 miles an hour, 85 percentile, probably faster at certain points. But it seems to me that just to make it, the reason shouldn't be just to make Cambridge all 135, because Cambridge East is a whole lot different than Cambridge West of Y, I mean.
I know at one time, I think the last time this was brought up, that you were thinking about maybe getting pole camera and speed limit.
Correct, and that's one of the things that we were going to add to this area, was to add another sign.
The digital thing I'm talking about.
Right, so we could have a radar sign out there that would actually post people's speeds, so that we would be able to show what people were driving in that area to help remind them of their speed through there.
I think if we do this, we need to
Correct, we would do that too.
install that digital pole sign. Go ahead.
Did I hear you, Mayor, ask about extending the school zone over to Y Highway?
Yes.
So it would go from Y Highway, proposal, Y Highway to the other side of
Coburn.
Colburn.
And then, right now, it's 25 miles an hour there.
Correct.
And so, if we're considering extending the school zone from that spot where it starts 25, if we're considering extending the school zone where it starts 25, why wouldn't we just start the 35 at Colburn and not change it there by Heartland School and going up to the other elementary school?
Simply because when school's not in session, it would be 35.
Yeah, but don't they do most of the summer schools there for the elementary schools?
They do it at Kentucky.
Part of the summer, it's
No, not at Cambridge.
not at Cambridge?
Mm-mm.
They used to, okay.
I think they pass it around.
And I mean, we can even move the school zone farther west if you want to do that too, but I don't think that's a need, because there's sidewalks there, so.
Looking at Google Maps, the school zone ends at Ridge Drive to the west.
Where?
Ridge Drive. The sign on Google Maps is right outside.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yeah.
I think that the point that, and what we will defer to y'all's judgment on this, obviously, but one of the points that Greg was trying to make is that it's an arterial street, and it's going to become more and more important as an arterial street as development continues, and the development pattern in Belton is going to go south and west. And so that, this is going to become a lot more important, a lot more traveled street. So the idea or concept of changing the speed limit to 35 to match arterial streets in our city is, if we don't do it, we're essentially just kicking the can down the road to someone eventually in the very near future, we hope, based on development patterns and what we're going to do in the future. Again, we'll defer to your judgment on this, because it may not be time to do that yet, but at some point it's probably going to have to be handled.
I mean, that makes sense, and like I said, I support it if we do that. The pole sign, the digital sign, so we know how fast they're going, and changing the school zone, so. Anybody else?
One little correction in deference to Mr. Clark. I think the city limits goes past Cleveland. It goes all the way to Prospect, I think.
Right. Anybody else? All right. Item C, Unified Development Code Text Amendment.
Yeah, staff is currently drafting the UDC text amendments that would modify the existing landlord business license requirement that's currently in Chapter 6 of the Code of Ordinances. This modification would include removing the landlord business license requirement and requiring a rental property registration through Chapter 10 of the UDC to go along with the rental inspection program that was passed by council at the last meeting. This program would allow the owner of rental property to register all units and pay a single fee to cover all rental inspections during the designated time period. Like with a current landlord business license, registration is non-transferable. Therefore, if the property is sold, all properties would have to be registered by the new owner. Separate business licenses for property managers will still be required, and we'll refer back to Chapter 6. As part of the definition update, staff has been discussed previously on a local point of contact. Staff is currently reviewing other policies from other communities to determine the most common and appropriate time or distance requirements for that local point of contact. In addition to changing the registration process, the amendment will also include adding the combined rental registration inspection fee, which is proposed to be $20 per unit. A public hearing is scheduled for the Planning Commission on Tuesday, September 5th, and then this item will come before the council after that.
Any questions? Go ahead.
So $20 per unit per year, even though they're only being inspected when they're vacant. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And it's my understanding that you're adding a local administrative agent?
There would be the local point of contact required as part of the registration.
Back to your question, the ideal was that we would still have the ability to do an external drive-by inspections on the outside every year or however often, not just the inside inspections.
I was just doing the math for some of our smaller size landlords as to how much that was going to come up in comparison to, because it was 70 before for a year. Is that correct? It was 70.
Correct. It was 70, and so initially there was discussion of keeping the $70 license and then adding per inspection. However, for smaller landlords that may only own a handful of properties, this is actually a better deal than charging 70 plus a certain dollar amount
Plus
on
an
each
inspection fee, yeah.
Thank you for doing the math for me. I didn't enjoy that.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Go ahead.
And then the $20, generally the way this works is when these things go into effect, the landlords add this, whatever the fee is, onto the rent, right? So they're not generally going to eat those costs. $20 a year is less than $2 a month for how that would change your rent potentially. So we thought that for $2 a month in rent, we thought it was a worthwhile venture.
Anybody else? All right. I entertain a motion to enter an executive session to discuss matters pertaining to leasing, purchase, or sale of real estate according to Missouri State Statute 610.021.2, and that the record be closed and the meeting adjourned from there.
Present.
Second.
Motion and a second. Roll call.
Councilmember Pryan,
Aye.
Kraft,
Aye.
Powell,
Yes?
White,
Aye.
Goff. Lawson.
Aye.
Mayor Larkey.
Yes.
Richardson.
Aye.
Motion passes.